it's just exciting to come back and speak and be at Boise State. Now, it was a bit of a trek to get up here, and I'll tell you, standing in front of this big maroon and white sign is something I never thought I would do. Kind of like that bucket list item that kind of snuck on the list without you knowing it. But that's okay. I'm glad to be here. Part of which because I was here, where you sit, just 14 years ago, and and I remember all the things that I learned. And you've had a lot of great speakers this week. And to be honest with you, I kind of feel like that guy on those test questions, which of these doesn't belong, Secretary of State Delbert Hosemann, Congressman Greg Harper, State Representative Toby Barker. There it is. All right, but the one thing I can bring to you is kind of I guess a more recent knowledge of where you're at. And you come to Boise State, you hear all these great speakers, maybe some that aren't so good, like maybe tonight. I don't know. Well, hopefully not. Hope you're going to meet a lot of great people. You're going to have a lot of experience. You're going to learn a lot about government. And I kind of remember where I was. I've received a whole lot of information. Now, what do I do with it? How do I go home? What happens with it? Because in many cases, events like this are one time. And we fail to really let it sort of sink in. We fail to take it home with us and let it have some sort of lasting change in us. And hopefully that's not the case this time, because that happens a lot in life, especially when you're in high school. You're just trying to get through the day, just trying to get through that class. It's lasting a long time. Every once in a while you look over to that girl you think's kind of cute. But the class is, that's right, all right. The class is really, really long. And then you try to get to the lunchroom, and you don't like the food there. And then you try to make it past that day into the weekend. There's a song about that, right? The 7 a.m. waking up in the morning, got to be fresh, got to go downstairs. There we go, all right. I got a better response 2 years ago, and that was really popular. Thank you. But we live in this sort of day-to-day, week-to-week thing. We just try to get through. We fail to see the big picture. We fail to connect it all. And what I want to do tonight is talk about how do we do that. And if I really want to engage you, let's be honest, we can't always do it face-to-face anymore. We use a smartphone. So I actually want you to pull out your cell phone. And I want you to go to your Twitter app. And if you don't have one, I just want you to know that the 31-year-old on stage is cooler than you, all right? So I'm just throwing it out there, all right? And I want you to look me up. It's Toby_Barker, Toby_ Barker. You don't have to follow me. That's okay, all right? It's all public, so we'll see about it. All right. So Toby_Barker. And there's a question I posted on Twitter, and I want you to tweet me back real quick, okay? And we're going to start this conversation like that. And one time I did this at a talk, and I asked a question, and the lines were really busy, and my tweet didn't go through, and everybody was just looking at me, and it was really awkward. So hopefully you've seen it, and you're gonna answer it. But part of what I'm asking you on Twitter right now is this idea of how do we see the bigger picture? How do we see the bigger thing that's out there? How do we connect what's happening right now with the overall picture, the overall story of our life? And so I'm starting to get some back. This is good. And what I'll do is we'll take a few of these responses, and then we'll and I'm going to have a couple of you actually come on stage. Carter Osborne, where are you at? Come on. Austin Brewer. Come on. Garrett Scott. All right. We'll go to this. Come on over here. I'm sure this thing works. All right. What's your name?
My name's Carter Osborne.
And go ahead and tell them what city you represent.
I represent Harper City, the city of Harper.
No applause. They must be ashamed of you. All right.
Proud.
All right. You put what for your favorite epic movie?
I chose Gladiator, because if you've ever seen it, you would know.
Okay. For those of us who have seen it, or those of us of the unlucky few that haven't, what do you like about Gladiator?
It just gets you going. It's an awesome pump-up movie. I mean, like, if I was about to go out and have to fight in a war, that's the movie.
Not that he would have to go fight right now.
But that's the movie I want to see, because it is, I don't know, got some great lines. It's just a great movie.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, Austin, what city are you from?
Hoseman.
And what did you put for your favorite movie?
300.
300. What is it about 300?
I don't know. It just gives me pumped up every time I watch it, I guess.
I have a very pumped up generation, so appreciate it. Thank you. All right, and finally, Garrett Scott. He's a nationalist, and you're from the city of?
Bryant.
And what did you put for your favorite epic movie?
I said Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. All right, let's check it out. Which one?
I guess Return of the King.
Okay. All right. What is it about that movie?
It's about this little guy who overcomes all odds and saves the world.
That's it. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. So the common theme that you heard there, the thing they like about those movies is it pumps them up. Aside from that, okay, it gets them going. What gets it going? I think he said it right there. It's because it's about a guy that normally would not be the hero, all right, by any stretch of the imagination. But he's put in a situation where he gets to go defeat the odds. And I think for every young man, that's something that we strive for. We want a battle to fight. We want to win. We want to overcome. We want to know that we had what it took. And that's what I think a lot of the world is missing right now. It's because we don't fully understand the story that we're living in. How many of you as kids had like the blanket forts or box forts? All right? Yeah? Okay. Any of you like have like the bottle rocket wars? All right. Any of you play sports? Yeah. Any of you try to play sports? That was me. All right. But what those things did, if you could put your phone back up, we may have another question in a little while. So, but what those movies teach us is that there's something bigger out there. And in today's generation, where we're just trying to get through the day and the week and just trying to get through the school year, and we're trying to meet the expectations of our parents and our friends, it's often hard to find the bigger story. And that's where the disconnect is. And so tonight, the one thing I want you to take home from this is that your life is a story. Your life is not a series of random events. Everything that has brought you to this point is part of your story. The people, the places, the situations, the successes and the failures, those are all part of your personal story. They have brought you to this point. Your life is not a series of accidents. There was a plan made. There is a bigger story. Your story affects other people. Your life is a story. Second thing I want you to know is that you are the author of your story. Now, at age 17, we're starting to kind of think through, maybe where we're going to go to college. And we often try to make excuses for ourselves. And we often, I can't do big things in life because I'm not the most outgoing person, or I'm not the best athlete, or I didn't come from a rich family. I live on the wrong side of town. And I can tell you those are all part of your story, but they don't define you. You decide. You are the author. You get to decide where it goes from here. And I'll tell you, believe it or not, I wasn't always this magnificent physical specimen you see before you. I was on the football team at Meridian High, but I was a kicker. I wasn't the kicker. I was a kicker. And I remember really struggling through because I was sort of smart. I made decent grades, but I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the most popular. All right, and I struggled with that. And maybe you do as well. And I remember something my dad did one night after when you get up like 20 points in the game, they'll put the backups in. In my case, it was like 30 points up, and they let me go in, and it was my senior year, and I missed every opportunity to kick an extra point. And it was humiliating, to say the least, that I'd gone through all that. And I remember getting home and just feeling rotten. And my dad had written me a letter on the computer, and he left it there, and he goes, and he made this point. He said, Toby, your life is not defined by one missed extra point. And he says, long after your mother and I have gone on to glory, and my dad has, he says, I know I'll look back, and you'll constantly be doing things that make us proud. And that meant everything to me. Because we can't let what's happening now, we can't let our circumstances, our situations define us. All right? Maybe you're not the smartest, maybe you're not the most athletic, maybe you're not the most popular, but you are the author of your story. You have total control over what happens from here on out. All right? So second thing is, you're the author. Don't make excuses. Go write your story. All right? Third thing is, your story has to move forward. Whenever you're writing something, you can't start in this year and suddenly go back and change what happened 2 years ago. And at 16 and 17, there may be some of you in the room, unless you're perfect, there are some things that you wish you would have done. There are some opportunities you wish you would have seized. There are some things maybe you wish you wouldn't have done. That was more the case in my situation. And we often go through this feeling of guilt and this feeling of sort of disappointment in ourselves. But you can't let that happen either, because if you're continually frozen by what happened or what you did or what you didn't do in the past, you can't live in the present. You can't move forward. You can't go ahead. And understand that no one is ever beyond the redemption of a loving God. And whatever you've done in high school, that's done. All right. We can only write our story forward. We can only start tomorrow and go forward. That should also be a big mantle of responsibility, because you only get to do it once. You only live today once. You're only going to live tomorrow once. And you have to start tomorrow writing your story and going forward. And the reason that I haven't yet talked to you, I know we're at Boise State, I'm supposed to be convincing you to run for public office, is that the world doesn't need another politician who isn't fully alive, who isn't fully writing their story, because you can't write the story for a community unless you've first written it for yourself. All right? So understand that your life is a story. Secondly, understand that you are the author. Third, understand that it can only move forward. You can't go backward. And next, understand that the story is always happening. Tomorrow, you're going to wake up. You're going to go home, and you decide how the story starts. You have one more year of high school. And as I said before, there are a lot of things I wish I'd have done. I wish I'd have treated people a lot differently. You can still do that. You have one more year to make a significant difference in your community and in your school before you go off to college or the military or whatever it is you decide to do. You have one more year, and it starts tomorrow, and you have to write a story that's fully alive tomorrow. Understand that it's bigger. How are you going to live this out? I got to see, after I spoke at Boise State last year, I got to see a couple of guys, one of which who introduced me, really take this to heart and really go back to their school and make a significant impact where they were, leave a legacy for the people coming behind them. You think about those guys you looked up to when you were in ninth grade. All right? Be that guy. All right, let me give you a few tips on how to do that, okay? First, this goes without saying, but we're in Mississippi and I have to tell this to you. You've got 1 year of high school left. Finish. Finish high school, all right? Second thing I want you to do is I want you to get a job. Any job, all right? I worked, and I want you to hold that job for 1 year. And here's why. Because going to a job, having to show up on time, having to work the entire day, or whatever it is you do, that teacher's responsibility. I worked at Burger King on 8th Street in Meridian. Anybody Meridian here? Burger King on 8th Street? Burger King on 8th Street, all right? Okay, all right. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So I worked there 2 years, and it was a terrible job in terms of the work, but it taught me so much about understanding people who were not like me. It taught me a lot about personal responsibility. That's what I think we need. That's what you need to be developing right now, because it doesn't get any easier, all right? Third thing, so we got to finish high school, we're going to get a job, all right? Third thing, don't father a child until you're married. We are the state, and this is embarrassing, and this should move all of us, especially people of faith. This should move us to action. Over half the babies born in Mississippi are now born to unwed mothers. All right? Now, does that mean we go judge them? No. What it does mean is we don't become another statistic, and we don't make new statistics. All right? Because I'm 31, I still don't have children. All right? And people, you're not prepared for that kind of responsibility at 17. All right? And if you're already in that situation, don't let it happen again. There's an easy way to not let that happen, okay? So, all right. So we got that. That's the awkward moment of the talk, by the way. All right. So we're going to finish high school. We're going to get a job. We're not going to father a child before we're married. Do those three things, and you'll dramatically change Mississippi statistics, by the way. Fourth thing, be the better person. We are the generation, the millennials. I'm a little ahead of you, but we're still in the same generation. You're at the better ending. You're at the better looking end of the train. I'm kind of, where the coal is and everything. So, all right. We could be the generation that could put the whole race thing in the state to bed for good. All right. But that only happens through each of us doing responsible behavior, such as spend some time with someone who doesn't look like you and actually be their friend. I'm not just saying, oh, I'm in the class with this guy, and so he's my friend. No, I mean spend time. Spend some time in their home. Get to know their story, all right? Don't use racial slurs either way. Don't laugh at racist jokes, no matter who they're about or what race they're about, all right? This is 2013. Don't be a bigot, okay? I mean, we're in a new world. I'm going to go a step further. Don't use gay slurs, and don't make gay jokes, all right? Whether or not you agree with the issue, the lifestyle, or whatever political issue is out there, all right, we don't do that. We don't demean, we don't belittle people, because the God that most of us claim to follow would never have done that, all right? So, the greatest thing you can learn, especially at your age, is empathy. Understanding where someone comes from. It doesn't mean you'll ever agree with them. But understand the person that you see one way and that you think they're so bad. Understand they have their own stories they're dealing with and their own circumstances. Those circumstances have brought that person to that point, all right? Empathize. Seek understanding. Ask questions. Listen more than you speak, all right? And be the better person. If you do that, starting tomorrow, when you're starting to write that story for yourself, your senior year, you're going to dramatically see not only your story get better and more fulfilling, but you're also going to see your leadership increase, because people want to follow somebody like that. All right? Next Twitter question, if we can. All right, it is hopefully sending yes. Okay. So, the question you're going to get right now is what I want to sort of focus on, and that is define something. The fifth of those tips on writing a better story is find something bigger than you. Find something bigger than you that you can invest in this year. All right? Seek to get outside yourself, whether it's befriending someone who is by themselves, that doesn't have any friends, whether it's volunteering to the soup kitchen, whether it's raising money for a courtyard at school, whatever that thing is, find something bigger than you and go do it. Our generation has been the most geared towards service and community service, and I have no doubt that if each of you put your mind to it, you can make these things happen. All right, so let's see. That'd be my wife. She's here. I'm not going to point her out to you, but all right. So I've got one here. Somebody wants to see our city start a youth city council. One person says to build a community center. I'm not going to talk about the one with the football games. I want to see our community come together. A bipartisan student work committee. See the school improve. More student involvement. All right, those are ambitious goals. All right, but it only happens when you start writing the story that's bigger than you, when you start thinking outside of going to class and doing the small, seemingly insignificant things. Start looking bigger. Because if you start doing that, I won't have to come and urge you to run for office. I mean, I won't urge you to make an impact because you'll be doing it already. All right? And that's what we need, because, and this is my final point, you're going to understand that your life is a story. You're the author. It only goes forward. Your story is always changing, always evolving. And finally, when you do that, your story affects the bigger story, the story around you. It affects my story. It affects Mississippi's story. And we need, as a state, to write a better story right about now. All right? Whether it's the Medicaid issue or whether it's education, we are very much divided right now. And we need people who will not just speak, but will get their hands dirty and get involved. All right? And not just politically, but on the ground, working with people. And this is my experience this year, is that this is my 6th year in the legislature. I've always been an advocate on education, especially early childhood education. And there's always been a lot of lip service paid to Mississippi needs early childhood education. Mississippi needs pre-K. It affects so many things. When you see kids that can't read at 3rd grade, it's because generally they showed up at kindergarten not ready to learn. All right? This is a big issue for us. Right now, we're the only state in the South that does not have any sort of state support for pre-K. It is a worthwhile investment. All right? It's a bipartisan issue, and that's something I've always believed in, and I've always kind of worked on it a little bit. But little did I know, a newly elected senator from Pascagoula, he started doing the same thing. And we realized that we were working on the same issue. And because we were each sort of writing this story together, this year, for the first time, a bill came out, and the governor signed it, that we are going to have state-funded early childhood education in Mississippi, and that's a big deal. And it didn't happen overnight. Again, I waited 6 years, and it took me connecting with Senator Bryce Wiggins from Pascagoula to make something like that happen, but it happened. And I believe it's going to pay off big dividends long term. And you can be doing the same thing. Write a story that's bigger than you, and it will start to affect things. You will start to see change. That's what Mississippi needs. Let me give you a sobering statistic here, and it should give you a lot of hope, but it should also give you a lot of responsibility. Sociologists say that generations replace themselves. The generation that's sort of going away will be replaced by a generation that's rising up. Right now, we are losing a big generation that went off, that grew up, that lived through the Depression, went off to World War II, came back, built the America that we know. And a lot of the people that are represented in this body know very well that generation, the greatest generation, the GIs. All right? They're starting to fade away. They're starting to die out. And we don't have very many left. But the generation that's rising, you, the millennials. And if the generation that's rising replaces the generation that's going away, and the generation that's going away was known as the greatest generation, what does that say about our potential? And what does that say about what we should be doing? Write a story, write one that's bigger than you. And we won't just be content with changing the world. We'll start creating a new one altogether. Thanks so much.